Once again, Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré, has sent corrupt African leaders into a state of panic and confusion, especially in light of US President Donald Trump's decision to cut aid to Africa. For decades, these corrupt leaders have exploited foreign aid, diverting funds meant for development into their personal coffers. The easy money that once lined their pockets is drying up, and they are being forced to confront a reality they never prepared for: self-sufficiency. Now, how exactly has Ibrahim Traoré shocked these corrupt elites? The answer is simple: through decisive action. While other African leaders make empty promises and stage elaborate ceremonies for projects that never materialize, Traoré is delivering real results. A recent viral video on social media captures the arrival of massive road construction and farming equipment worth millions of dollars in Burkina Faso. The most shocking part? This footage wasn't released by government officials or the president himself. It was recorded by a traveller who witnessed the equipment entering the country through Ghana. This is a leader whose work speaks for itself, without the need for publicity stunts or self-congratulatory speeches. Burkina Faso is now taking full control of its infrastructure development. The government has committed to constructing major roads and highways to connect the country's largest cities. This is why the new equipment has arrived. It is a direct investment in the nation's future, not another empty promise. But Traoré's vision doesn't stop at Burkina Faso's borders. As part of the newly formed alliance of Sahel states, AES, which includes Mali and Niger after their departure from ECOWAS, plans are already underway for a 1,146-kilometre interstate highway. This major project will connect Niamey, Tira, Dori, Kaya, Ouagadougou, Bobo-Dioulasso, Oradara, Sikasso, Bougouni and Bamako, creating a strategic trade and transport route that will strengthen regional cooperation. What sets this apart from typical African infrastructure projects is the source of funding. Burkina Faso is financing these developments with its own money, without relying on foreign loans that come with strings attached. The same people who contributed 175 billion CFA francs in 2024 to support the war effort, without even factoring in the defense budget, are now investing in infrastructure. And with the country's new gold refinery providing additional revenue, there is no doubt that Burkina Faso has the means to sustain its progress. To ensure these projects are executed efficiently, the government has created a specialized agency to oversee them. Traoré understands that strong roads and transportation systems are essential for economic growth, and this new infrastructure will be a game-changer for Burkina Faso and the AES alliance. This is why corrupt African leaders are in disarray. For years they have built their power on lies, dependency and stolen wealth. Now, Traoré is proving that true leadership means building a nation from within, using its own resources and putting the people first. His actions are exposing the failures of the old system, leaving those who thrived on corruption terrified. The message is clear. A new era of African leadership has begun, one that rejects exploitation, embraces self-reliance, and demands accountability. And for those who have spent decades profiting from the suffering of their people, there is no escaping the reckoning that is coming. You see, when Captain Ibrahim Traoré boldly declared, "We have been receiving aid for 63 years, yet our country has not developed. Cutting it off from us now will not kill us. Rather, it will motivate us to work and reform ourselves." Many dismissed his words as mere rhetoric. But now, with US President Donald Trump's decision to halt aid to African countries, his statement has become a reality that exposes the deep-rooted flaws of African governance. If you paid close attention after Trump's announcement, you would have noticed the outrage across Africa. Social media was flooded with complaints, with many calling the decision unfair and disastrous. Africans were furious, not at their corrupt leaders who have mismanaged resources for decades, but at Trump, as if foreign aid was a birthright rather than a privilege. As I said, for decades, African governments have blamed colonialism, the global economy, and even climate change for their failures. They claim the world is against them, yet when aid arrives, it vanishes, stolen, misused, or wasted on unnecessary luxuries. When questioned, these leaders react with hostility rather than accountability. Look at South Africa, where public funds mysteriously disappear into politicians' pockets. In Nigeria, billions meant for infrastructure and public services are looted. Kenya drowns in debt, while officials live extravagantly. Across the continent, leaders cry about being victims, yet they refuse to take responsibility for their nation's decline. None of this is Trump's fault. None of this is the West's fault. This is the result of corrupt African leadership failing its people. What's truly shocking is the sense of entitlement among African leaders. They expect endless financial assistance but reject any form of scrutiny. But here's the reality. Respect is earned, not demanded. No nation has an obligation to fund corrupt governments that treat their citizens with neglect. Aid is meant to uplift people, not to finance extravagant lifestyles for politicians. If African governments were serious about development, they would prioritize self-reliance and economic transformation instead of endlessly begging for handouts. Americans have every right to stop sending billions to leaders who steal from their own people. Trump's decision should not be a wake-up call for America, but for Africa itself. The problem is not the lack of foreign aid. The problem is bad leadership, misplaced priorities, and a culture of impunity. Instead of complaining about Trump, Africans should be demanding better governance. When governments panic at the mere suggestion of financial audits, it's clear there is something to hide. Until leadership changes, no amount of aid will make a difference. The real enemy of Africa is not Trump. It's the leaders who refuse to do the right thing. African leaders should take notes from Ibrahim Traoré, a leader whose actions speak louder than words. His recent visit to Ghana for the inauguration of President John Mahama proved just how much Africans admire genuine leadership. At the event, 21 African heads of state were present, including the chairpersons of ECOWAS and the African Union. Yet, when their names were called, the audience remained silent. However, when Captain Ibrahim Traoré's name was announced, the stadium erupted in cheers and applause. The excitement was so overwhelming that it overshadowed even President Mahama's moment. A massive crowd followed Traoré to his vehicle, chanting his name with admiration. Why do millions of Ghanaians and Africans across the continent respect him? Because he stays in his country, working tirelessly to solve real problems instead of globetrotting in search of aid. Unlike other African leaders who fly in private jets begging for loans, Traoré is cutting down on government waste and prioritizing local development. His administration is focused on industrialization, economic self-sufficiency, and wealth creation. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso has established a pharmaceutical production plant, tomato processing factories, a cashew nut factory, a waste treatment plant, and even a nuclear power facility. Job creation. He is investing in industrial complexes to process shea butter, refined edible oil, and other essential goods, putting millions of unemployed youth back to work. Government accountability. No public official is allowed to ride expensive cars, fly first class, or waste public funds on unnecessary foreign trips. Even Traoré himself drives a second-hand pickup truck, redirecting state funds toward meaningful development. Nationalizing resources. He is ensuring Burkina Faso reclaims control of its mineral wealth, preventing exploitation by foreign corporations. Massive infrastructure investments. He is injecting millions into key sectors, including agriculture, health, education, energy, food security, tourism, and security, laying the foundation for sustainable economic growth. Salary reforms for justice and equity. He has cut the salaries of ministers, managing directors, and top officials by 30%, while increasing civil servants' wages by 50%. Traoré's leadership proves that Africa does not need endless foreign aid to prosper. It needs bold, fearless leaders committed to the people's welfare. Burkina Faso is financing its own development, while many other African nations remain dependent on handouts. The choice is clear. African leaders can either continue the cycle of corruption and dependency, or they can follow Traoré's example and build a self-reliant future. If Trump's decision to cut aid has thrown corrupt African governments into panic, then it only proves one thing: they never planned to build their nations without it. It's time for Africa to wake up. Real development starts from within. Let me say it again. Ibrahim Traoré is proving that Africa does not need endless foreign aid to succeed. What it needs is strong, fearless leadership that prioritizes economic self-reliance over dependency.